Okay, so the first thing we have to look at, and this is really the key to understanding the island today, is the massive shipwreck you can still see lodged on the reef. This is the MV Primrose. After a monsoon threw the ship onto the reef, its 28 crew members were stranded. A few days later, they looked to the shore and saw about 50 Sentinelese warriors gathering with spears, and the most significant detail from the captain's distress call is what the crew witnessed on the beach. The islanders were actually building boats. It was a methodical effort to get to their ship. You can imagine the tension of watching that unfold day after day. The crew was saved only because the same rough seas that wrecked them also made it impossible for the Sentinelese to launch their small craft. After a week of this standoff, a helicopter finally arrived and airlifted them all to safety, but the ship itself was left behind, and it became an incredible resource for the islanders. For them, it was a massive source of iron, perfect for making stronger, more durable arrowheads and tools. And what's fascinating is that historical records show this wasn't even the first time. Official accounts confirm another shipwreck, a vessel called the Witch, wrecked on the island way back in 1867. This means the Sentinelese have been salvaging metal and adapting outside technology for well over a century. It gives you a completely different perspective on who they are. Not just an isolated tribe, but a resourceful people who have learned to make use of these rare encounters with the modern world. Alright, now as we move down the coast from the shipwreck, we come across something that's, and frankly, a bit of a puzzle. Take a look at this spot right here. When you look at the satellite image from 2023, you can see a large clearing and a distinct rectangular shape inside it. But here's the thing, if you roll back the clock just 1 year to 2022, there's nothing there. It's just a solid line of trees along the coast. Now, I want to be clear. I can't say for sure that this is a building, but the shape is very specific, and the fact that it appeared in a newly cleared area within a single year is what makes it so significant. The big question, of course, is why they would build something so exposed right out in the open. You'd think they would want to stay hidden, but then you consider the location itself. It's not far from the MV Primrose. Could this be a kind of workshop or a place to store materials they're salvaging from the wreck? Maybe it's a spot to shelter their canoes while keeping them ready to launch. From that perspective, putting it right on the coast starts to make a bit more practical sense. Now, if you follow the coastline from that mysterious clearing, you start to see more evidence of how these people use the island. Take a look here at what certainly appears to be a trail. It starts near the beach and snakes its way inland, disappearing into the dense forest. Now, I know the first thought might be that this is just a natural feature, maybe a dry creek bed caused by water runoff, but the path looks very distinct. Honestly, a man-made trail just makes practical sense. These are people who have to walk everywhere they go on the island, so it's logical they would have a network of established paths connecting different areas. That leads to a bigger idea. Think about how the Sentinelese always seem to know when an outsider gets close, no matter where they are on the coast. That strongly suggests they don't just have one single village, it's more likely they have smaller encampments or lookout points spread across the island to keep watch. A trail like this would be the perfect way to connect those outposts. There's even some data that seems to back this up. Some satellite fire monitoring maps have flagged heat signatures in this very region, indicating the possible presence of campfires. When you track this trail through the years on the satellite view, you can see it's consistently there. It shifts a little, parts might get overgrown, but the main route remains, telling us it's a path that's been used for a long time. This next feature is one of the most intriguing on the island, and it's this large, distinct clearing deep in the forest. This brings up a huge question. Did they do this on purpose, or was it something natural? On one hand, it's possible this was just a forest fire that got out of hand. That certainly happens. But the other possibility is that they cleared this area themselves. And when you think about it, there's a very logical reason they might. We know they have iron tools salvaged from the shipwrecks, so they definitely have the ability to cut down large trees. And what do they need large trees for? To build their canoes. Okay, let's shift our focus to the southern tip of the island, because there's some really interesting activity happening down here as well. You can spot another clear trail here, and this area is particularly interesting because it looks like a perfect spot to launch their canoes. You can almost picture them using this sheltered cove to go out fishing, given its strategic location for accessing the sea. It's not a stretch to think one of their main settlements, or at least a very active camp, could be located just inland from here. And this is where you see some really dynamic changes year over year. If you look at this coastal area and toggle between the satellite images from 2021, 2022, and 2023, the landscape is noticeably different. We're witnessing people actively building and changing their world year by year. It's that human element, that sign of progress and ingenuity in one of the most isolated places on Earth. Alright, as you head east, from that southern point, you can see even more walking trails along the coast, but then your eye is drawn over to this smaller separate island here, Constance Island, and this is where I spotted another one of those puzzling shapes. Keep your eye on this rectangle right here. When you go back to the 2022 image, it's gone. Just a line of trees, then forward to 2023, and the shape is back. Now, I don't know if this is a rendering artifact from Google Earth. That's always a possibility. I'm not claiming it's definitively a building, but it's the strategy of it that makes it so compelling. Putting an outpost on a completely separate island would be a brilliant move. It would give them a safe place to retreat to if something happened on the main island. It also serves as a perfect lookout point. We have to remember, while North Sentinel feels incredibly isolated, it's not that far from other places like the Andaman Islands or South Sentinel Island. Having a watchtower of sorts would give them a major advantage in monitoring the surrounding sea for any approaching vessels.